welcome to our event, which is Adversity and Opportunity in Disguise, which is proudly hosted by Gladstone Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Gladstone Engineering Alliance and GAPDL. So this is a Small Business Month event, and while we normally have a celebration of business event during this month, with things that are going on at the moment, we thought we might change it up a little bit. Because obviously businesses are going through quite a few challenges at the moment, and we hope that everyone's getting through this to the best that they possibly can. So our aim today is to give you some things to consider and how you can use these challenges that we face to improve your business, whether it's through diversifying operations, updating and implementing systems and procedures as well, or by completely revamping your business. So what we've seen historically is that in times of adversity, opportunities arise and innovation thrives as well. So it's been fantastic to see so many local businesses change how they actually operate in these environments that are changing almost on a daily basis, and they're delivering their products and services in so many different ways as to how they would normally do it. So the use of technology, whether it's working from home, having online meetings, or hosting events such as this one, has been adopted by almost every business as well. And I think that after the restrictions end, we will continue to see this operate, and probably a hybrid of having online events and in-person events as well. So that will be no doubt something that will continue going forward. Finally, I would just like to say that it's now more important than ever to buy locally, and we need to support all the local businesses in our community so that we can come through this as strongly as we possibly can. So that's all from me. My name's Joe Smith, I'm President of the Chamber of Commerce. I'll hand you over now to Gus from GAPDL.
Thank you, Joe, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm the Chief Executive of the Area Promotion Development Limited, the local regional tourism organisation. We hope you find this virtual event to be both informative and enjoyable. Small business are the lifeblood of any community. They are open all hours and are the epitome of resilience and flexibility. No other sector of the business community can turn adversity into opportunity like a small business can. Telling a small business operator that they can't do something is like waving the red rag to a bull. I can recount many stories about how some small businesses have reinvented themselves to survive, and I know people in this community whose businesses have taken them down a different path to the one they first envisaged, and still carry on very successfully regardless. We all know of small business operators who work tirelessly day in and day out for years, battling the roughest and the best of times, and they all have my admiration. Our local member Glenn Butcher's parents, Neville and Annette, are great examples of that with their Sun Valley Seafoods and their businesses in Gladstone. All small businesses exist to provide a service, and they're the heart and soul of the community. They are our trusted advisors, our service providers, our cleaners, our cooks and our bakers. They are the companies you see advertised on all of their local sports gear, and they rely heavily on that support being reciprocated. Please support as many local businesses as you can, and I hope you enjoy today's event. And over to you, Chantel.
Hi everyone, I'm the General Manager at Gladstone Engineering Alliance. As Joe and Gus have said, welcome, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us in this virtual event to celebrate Small Business Month. I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I know times are tough right now for small business in our community, but our teams believe in the resilient spirit of our business community, and we have seen many boom and bust times, particularly here in Gladstone. We trust as a collective we'll come out stronger post-COVID. Whether a member of GEA, GAPDL or GCCI, we're here to support you and help your organisations grow, prosper, diversify and innovate. So reach out, maximise our services and stay connected. On behalf of GEA, GAPDL and GCCI, I would like to thank Santos LNG for supporting this event by connecting us to their ambassador, rugby legend Tim Horan. I know we're all excited to hear about Tim's story, speaking a bit later, coming from adversity and taking a gap as a leader. I'd like to thank Lightbox Gladstone, Gladstone Entertainment and Convention Centre, and Central Apartment Groups for donating some great prizes that we will draw at the end of the presentation, so please stick around. I'd also like to thank Gus and Joe for being here today in the spirit of collaboration and prioritising our three organisations to celebrate this month. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Member for Gladstone and newly appointed Minister for Regional Development and Manufacturing, Glenn Butcher. Welcome, Glenn.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Chantel. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Excellent. Excellent. Certainly, thanks for having me on today. It's been a busy couple of weeks, obviously, since the announcement a couple of weeks ago in my new role. So it's great to get back into Gladstone and have a conversation with some great local business people and particularly small business people. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we gather and across the airwaves, obviously today by Zoom, and acknowledge those elders, both past, present, and those that are emerging. Certainly also acknowledge today Chantel Lane, who's with us, as you can see on your right. She's from Gladstone Engineering Alliance, which we know do a fantastic job, not only supporting business here, but also some of those training skills that our young people have received. President Joe Smith from the Chamber of Commerce. One of the first phone calls I made in my new role was to the chair of the Chamber of Commerce here in Queensland, so it was great to catch up with them. And certainly local champion Gussie Stedman from GAPDL, who's doing a great job in that role, and certainly understanding that the industry that he looks after is certainly doing it very, very tough. So for those that are online, ladies and gentlemen, certainly the inaugural Small Business Month, certainly time as won't be forgotten, obviously, with what we know about what's happening here with the coronavirus. But it's also highlighted certainly some of the important roles that small businesses play throughout our economy here in Queensland and around Australia, but especially in communities just like Gladstone. This year, the Queensland Government is running the Support Small campaign to urge those Queenslanders to support small business, especially those that have been impacted by COVID-19. And I must say, I've been buoyed by some of the work that our local small businesses have been doing here in Gladstone, in this COVID-19 crisis, and the way that they've adapted and modified their business model to keep, people employed, but also to keep some money flowing into the business. So a big tick and a big congratulations to all those businesses that have continued to trade, but also, thoughts are with those businesses and companies that have certainly been doing it tough and forcefully had to shut their doors. We know the small business is certainly the backbone of our economy, particularly here in Queensland, with nearly 1 million Queenslanders employed in small business, which is a huge number. Locally here in Gladstone, we have around 3,600 of those small businesses right in our area here. Certainly this year, after the impact of the COVID-19 goes through, we certainly need to support these businesses and their staff as they get back into normal work life. And hopefully, I see the Premier standing up on Sunday. Maybe we might be able to get some of those further relaxations announced this weekend to allow the Queensland economy to certainly get a good kickstart. This year, as I said, certainly been very tough, but we know that this job's going to take a lot longer for small businesses to get back on their feet once we certainly start to open some of Queensland up. As I said, after being sworn in as the Minister for Regional Development and Manufacturing earlier this month, it's certainly a job that I have a special interest in going forward. And for those that know me from the Gladstone region here, spent 21 years out at QL in the manufacturing industry there. So, and also now being the Minister for Regional Development based here in Central Queensland, certainly I believe we've got a lot of opportunities going forward. We all know we've got a very important role that we can all play in the process as customers, certainly as clients, to support our small businesses here in Queensland every opportunity that we get. Sorry, I'm just waving my bits of paper around. I'm certainly very proud to be part of a government that's worked hard to support our business sector through these tough times. We were certainly the first government to announce a $27 million tourism package as part of our recovery package. Since then, we've certainly also announced more than $6 billion to support Queensland jobs and businesses, which covered nearly $10 million in payroll tax refunds for businesses and $360 million of that in refunds across the whole of Queensland. $1 billion is in interest-free loans, which has been the largest loan facility, those Q-Rider loans, by government in the whole of Australia. $500 million for workers' assistance package has been given out. Land tax relief that we've given, introduction of a small business commissioner, which is, for those that know her, Marie-Anne Sheed is the small business champion at the moment. She's now become the small business commissioner here in Queensland. And along with that, electricity rebates, where hopefully some of those small businesses and people of Gladstone will receive that $200 back in their power bill this month. Last week, our Minister for Employment and Small Business, Shannon Fentiman, opened up the new $96 million Small Business COVID-19 Adaptation Grant Program, which is a part of the Workers Assistance Program, where local businesses were offered up to $10,000 per business that have been impacted by COVID-19 restrictions, which have been forced to obviously hibernate or restructure to switch to online trading and other ways to do the business, which I talked about before. These grants have been able to be spent on financial, legal and professional support, as well as marketing, purchasing, digital equipment, or certainly those services. Those grants were clearly very popular, as they oversubscribed within the first 5 days of those grants coming online. The Premier has said the government will certainly urgently look at further assistance going forward for small business, which is I know for a fact that a lot of small business and the Chamber of Commerce have certainly said that those $10,000 grants and the timeframes that they were snapped up, I would hope over the next couple of weeks that we may be able to extend that program just as we did with the Q-Rider grant. So fingers crossed we may get an announcement on that shortly. As I said, we're also funding a range of online training through TAFE Queensland and CQ University to support people to upgrade their digital skills and assist affected workers towards getting new employment opportunities if they've become unemployed. On top of that, we continue to link business owners with small business experts through our Mentoring for Growth program, and hopefully, and I know Joe is certainly and the Chamber have been a big supporter of that program. Specific advice and information to improve and adapt your business plans can be vital as the market changes, as we've seen has happened recently. Industry has certainly welcomed these announcements from the Premier, and the Small Business Minister, Shannon Fentiman, is certainly very serious about making sure that our small businesses get back up and running. However, we certainly know that many businesses, especially small businesses, are certainly struggling with the information overload, and that's why we've set up a dedicated 24-hour, 7-day-a-week small business hotline, which hopefully some of our people on here today have used, which provides information on all levels of support from the Queensland Government, along with Australian and also local government grants are available and other opportunities, including our local Gladstone Regional Council. So I certainly urge everyone to check what support certainly is available to them through that page. And if you're confused or struggling to understand what you may or may not be eligible for, you should certainly contact that small business hotline for further information. I certainly know of a couple of businesses that talk to me and they've certainly got support through that hotline. Getting people back into the workforce and customers and clients back into their shops while continuing to protect our health here in Queensland is certainly our next goal. It's certainly going to take a concerted effort from everyone involved in Queensland. It won't be business as usual, as we know, for some time, but certainly by supporting and encouraging each other, we can keep improving confidence a little bit more each day and then each week and each month after that. The Queensland Government released the roadmap for easing restrictions early this month, and as I said, hopefully after this weekend we may get some more information on those relaxations throughout Queensland. But I'm certain that the Premier is still looking to make sure that we can contain our Queensland borders because we still know that there's certainly a large amount of virus hotspots within New South Wales and Victoria. It was great to see the welcome back of students from grade 2 to 10 this week, and we certainly look forward to those restrictions, as I said, being able to be lifted. So when the next round of school holidays comes along, and I know it seems a bit strange, most of the students have been at home, but school holidays aren't too far off. We certainly look forward to hopefully being able to go out and about and visit and spend some money around our electorates. As I said, a big part of that is tourism, and as Gussie said, it's certainly a very important part of our business here in Gladstone, and hopefully we can get those places like Agnes Water and Heron Island, particularly around the Gladstone region, certainly up and running again. We know tourism is certainly a vital sector in Queensland's economy, with an international travel certainly being off the cards. It's now time for those people of Queensland to start supporting our own, and the opportunity now to get out and see some of Queensland. So while 2020 may certainly be remembered from its impacts that we've seen from COVID-19, I sincerely hope our inaugural Queensland Small Business Month certainly marks the point where Gladstone businesses and the owners, certainly and entrepreneurs, saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully we're certainly coming towards the end of that tunnel. We need to work hard. We need to find new initiative ways of doing things, like as we're seeing here today, the Zoom event that we're doing, and support small wherever you can, and keep making sure that we keep, those social distancing. I think it's one of the things that we really need to start to refocus on as these restrictions come off. We need to continue to maintain that, even if you go out in public, you still need to try and do that 1.5 metres of separating and hand sanitising. And obviously, washing your hands with soap as often as you can. So please, for the small businesses on here, please check out the www.business.queensland.gov.au or call the small business hotline on 1-800-654-687. And I'm sure that the Chamber or certainly GEA can support anyone who's looking for those details, or even call my office here on Phillip Street. Our doors are now back open. And I want to make sure that everyone has the latest information for funding and for grants and opportunities to do their businesses better. Thank you certainly all for the opportunity. It's now my pleasure to pass the ball on to Wallabies legend and Santos GLNG ambassador Tim Horan. Tim began his career on the Downlands College in Toowoomba, and has certainly dominated as an inside centre. So a little bit of a reflection on myself and Gussie back in our playing day, Gus, how fast we were out in the centres, and he dominated in that era in the 90s, playing for the Queensland Reds, the Super 12s, and obviously the Wallabies, as we know. He featured in both World Cups that Australia won. I wish he could come back and play for them now. In 1999 was voted player of the tournament, winning himself a year's supply of Guinness. So I think that's what most football players do at the end of their career. So Tim, known as the line breaker, will certainly have some knowledgeable lines to contribute today. So I'll now hand over, and once again, thank the opportunity for being on here today, and I'll hand over to Tim.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, thanks very much for the introduction, and thanks to GEA and everyone on the Zoom call, all the small businesses around Gladstone. It's great to hopefully over the next 15, 20 minutes just have a bit of a chat to you about what I learned playing for the Wallabies, the Australian Rugby Union team, travelled all over the world, some amazing places, met some amazing people, and then taking the values and everything that I learned playing the game, the disciplines, etc., playing the game of rugby, to hopefully give you a little bit of inspiration with what's been happening the last couple of months with COVID-19. And I've been ambassador for Santos for 8-9 years now, and been to Gladstone a few times at the Goats training on a Thursday night. So it's great to see the community going well, and it's really important. I go to places like Narrabri, Roma, Surat, Gunnedah, so all these places out in Darwin, everywhere where Santos operates. And I get a great thrill going to Gladstone and seeing, Curtis Island a couple of times, being over there and seeing how much infrastructure is there, but also how much resilience I think is in small business around Gladstone. So thanks for coming on. I thought what I'd do, I thought I'd just share my screen with everyone. I've got a little presentation that hopefully we can share. At the moment, I've got host disabled participant share screening, so someone needs to just flick that off. Hopefully I can share a bit of just a couple of points about what I've learned playing for the Wallabies. So there's hopefully everyone can see my screen now. There we go. So really when playing for the Wallabies, part of obviously all small business and all, main sort of companies or wherever you work, I mean, culture is very important, as we know, and we had a very strict culture playing for the Wallabies for a long period of time. And I suppose the best way that I could probably talk about my experience playing with the Wallabies for about 12 years. So as Glenn mentioned, lucky enough to win 2 Rugby World Cups for the Wallabies. But I think for me, playing professional sport, amateur sport in the early days, then professional sport, and the alignment with business is, whenever we play against the All Blacks, and I'm sure there's some Kiwi supporters on the Zoom call, hopefully only 1 or 2, that whenever we play the All Blacks, we play for what's called the Bledisloe Cup, which we haven't had for about 17 years. But the best analogy I can give for business and sport is that we probably get 2 or 3 chances to score against the All Blacks when you play the All Blacks. And the big thing about that is how do you, one, identify a gap? And I've done a lot of stats over the last 20 years. I work for Fox Sports and commentate on rugby union. Is that how long does a gap actually stay open for? And the gap actually stays open on average over the 20 years that I looked at all these different gaps and tries that were being scored, was 1.03 of a second. So what does that mean? It means you have to be quite instinctive. You have to be fit enough, strong enough to, one, you got to identify the gap, and then 2, have the ability to actually take the gap. I think that's the same in business at the moment. What we're all facing is that, I got a very good friend who has a restaurant in Sydney at the moment, and it's a seafood restaurant. He was just going to close his doors, didn't know what to do. He said, I'll go out of business. He then opened up a gourmet takeaway fish and chip area at his restaurant. And he's back to 80% revenue that he was at the restaurant. So identified a gap, took the gap, and is going very well with it. I think when you look at the different teams that I've been involved in, and we all try and strive to be, I suppose, part of high-performing teams. I think for me, what drove me on, and probably what drives a lot of you on the calls at the moment, is the fear. In sport, it's the fear of losing. In business, it's the fear of losing. It's the fear of losing, your income. It's the fear of losing staff, a fear of losing, your pride. And that's what drives a lot of sporting people on as well, is to, we focus a lot on trying not to have the fear. And I've done a lot of work. Some of you on the call would have heard of the brand Red Bull. I've done a bit of work with the Red Bull high performance teams in the States, in America. And what they do is that they take a group of athletes away. They have a motorbike rider, a BMX rider, a surfer, all these different athletes that they sponsor. And they take them away, and they went to Hawaii on one trip, and for 10 days, they didn't know what all these 9 athletes were going to do. And when they got to Hawaii, the head of high performance from Red Bull said, this is what we're going to do all week for 9-10 days, is you have to be able to, end of 9 days, you have to be able to hold your breath for more than 2 minutes underwater. They all looked at them, and so they jumped in the pool. Of those 9 athletes, there was only 1 that got to hold their breath over a minute on the first day. And then they put them through all these different tests, and by the end of the 9 days, those athletes, there was only 1 athlete that couldn't hold their breath underwater for more than 2 minutes. And it was all these little 1%ers that Red Bull try and get out of their athletes, and what they try and do, and this is a big theme of what I chat to you about today, is you have to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. I know the Wallabies in a sporting environment, that's what they try and do. They try and make sure that put themselves in uncomfortable positions off the field, on the field, so you know that, and you actually feel a lot more comfortable. So difficult times now, and I think now more than ever, everyone who's on the call, I'm sure, have staff that are now on JobKeeper, or staff that they still have. And I think, for me, in the businesses that I've worked in and being part of a professional rugby team, you've really got to get to know what motivates your staff or what motivates your teammates, because everyone's different. I saw on the call there before someone with their baby in the background, which is fantastic. So what motivates you to go to work? What motivates you to bring home income? Is it to put your kids through school? Is it just to look after your children? Is it a second job as your husband works? Or what motivates that person to come to work and do what they do? And I think very much important that I learned when I finished playing professional sport is probably 4 things to really communicate with your staff. One's give them responsibility. How do you give them that responsibility to go forward, even though you may be a leader? How do you give them learning? So how do you teach them along the way and actually get them to have the responsibility of learning going forward? More importantly, how do you give them recognition? So we had some very good coaches throughout my time that would always recognise you for the little things that people would not normally see. Whether it's, if you're in a staff room, whether it's someone washing up, it's the captain putting something away, sweeping the sheds. What is that gets you that little bit of recognition? And the last part is joy. So how do you have fun? How do you have fun along the way? And I think that's really important, those key messages: responsibility, learning, recognition, and joy, that you can give to your staff in these pretty tough times. One of the great leaders that I had a chance to meet was Nelson Mandela. When we travel with the Wallabies over a long period of time, we've had some memorable sort of times in Buckingham Palace to meet Her Majesty the Queen on 3 or 4 times. I even got a little souvenir teaspoon from Buckingham Palace I don't think I was supposed to take, but I've got that at home at the moment. But to meet Her Majesty the Queen, to talk to her, to talk to Prince Philip, to have 2 opportunities to meet Princess Diana when I was very young, when I was 20, 21, before test matches, to be able to meet those sort of people was incredible. But to have the opportunity to meet Nelson Mandela a year after Rugby World Cup in 1995, and if anyone's seen the movie Invictus, how powerful that was, and Nelson Mandela, spoke to the person in the picture there with the Rugby World Cup, is the captain of the South African team, the Springboks. So Francois Pienaar, and he said to Francois Pienaar, we need to unite the country. So how do we reunite the country? By having rugby union. How do you actually have rugby union where can unite everyone within the country? And he was a wonderful leader and someone who, I remember, if you watch the movie Invictus, his helicopter lands, I think it's on the Thursday afternoon before the Rugby World Cup final on the Saturday. And he hops out of the helicopter, addresses the Springbok rugby team on the biggest moment of their whole lives, saying how important it is to unite the country by winning against the All Blacks on the Saturday afternoon in Johannesburg. So, and Francois Pienaar was an old coach of mine. He coached me in London at a team, and he said it was amazing. He didn't say much, went back to his helicopter, flew off on the Thursday afternoon, but just before he flew off, Francois Pienaar, the captain, said, I just presented him a number 6 Springbok jersey and jokingly said to him, Mr. President, would you mind wearing this on Saturday at the World Cup final? I think he'd be there in a tie and suit. And of course, the image that we see in front of us now is Nelson Mandela with that number 6 Springbok jersey on him. And Francois Pienaar said he came into the dressing room about 5 minutes before they were about to run out and just said a prayer with the Springbok team, 3 minutes before they're running out to play the biggest game of their career. And walked out of the room, and they said their hearts were pounding, their minds were racing, and because the president of South Africa walked in their room and said the prayer with them just before they ran out to play the biggest game of their life. So that's leadership. Was an amazing person, and got the chance to meet him, have a chat with him for 5 or 10 minutes, and I asked him about the history of Rugby World Cup, and obviously we know now he's passed away, but incredible leader, and get the opportunity to meet someone like that. Moving on briefly before we sort of wrap up in the next sort of 5 minutes or so, I think for where we're all at the moment, these challenging times, and what I can pass on to you is, everyone's a leader. And as I mentioned before, is, being comfortable in uncomfortable moments as a leader. I think to be able to do that, to show leadership amongst your staff, amongst the community, more importantly, around the Gladstone community, is everyone's a leader, whether you're, for us in a sporting landscape, whether it's your first game for the Wallabies or it's your last game for the Wallabies, we always made sure everyone could contribute, everyone had a voice. And that was really important, that the new members need to earn their respect, but they also had a voice as well. So I want to move on quickly to, we talk about the culture of all organisations, but the culture of the All Blacks. And hopefully this will work. I just want to show you the haka of the All Blacks, and this was when I commentate for Fox Sports. We commentated on the Rugby World Cup final in 2015 in London. It was an incredible experience, and this runs for about a minute and a half. The haka, and what the haka means, it's a challenge. They lay down a challenge, and you have to stand and face that challenge and accept that challenge. And then some similarities where this is where we're at the moment with COVID-19. We're all being faced with big challenges, and how do we stand up and actually face that challenge? So I'll put this on, then there's another slide to go, and then happy to answer a few questions along the way. You get the gist of the All Blacks and how powerful they are, and what that means to them. That culture's been there for a long time. And I know that there's a lot of people on the Zoom call now who have been in the business, a small business, a large business, for a long period of time, and that takes a long time for the culture to build. And I think, where we are at the moment and the challenging times is that culture is the one that's really got to stand out at the moment and get everyone through. And it's tough times where, and someone said to me the other day that this mate of mine has got a restaurant in Sydney, knows another guy, and they're just saying, we just need to tread water till Christmas. How can we just hang on till Christmas and get through? And so in this last couple of slides, it's all about, for us, for the Wallabies, is the jersey that we wear. What does that mean? How do you leave a legacy? How do you leave part of your DNA in a small business, in a sporting landscape? One quick story. So what's called, when you finish playing for the Wallabies, you become what's called a classic Wallaby. So that's a Wallaby player who's played one test match or 150 test matches. So you become a classic Wallaby. And one person that, if anyone's had the opportunity, I went to Villeneuve Britneux, which is the Australian War Memorial on the Western Front, about an hour and a half north of Paris. And I went there years ago to have a look, and I found a great article about a former Wallaby player called Major Blair Swannell. And it's an incredible story where he played for the British and Irish Lions in 1899 and 1903, came to Australia, played those test matches. Then he stayed in Australia, played one test match for the Wallabies in 1904 against the All Blacks. He was Wallaby number 74. Then he went away to Gallipoli and showed his platoon how to take better aim on the beaches in Gallipoli, and he was shot and killed after about 90 seconds of landing on the beach. And the great thing about the culture of the Wallabies is, and the classic Wallabies, you get one opportunity to actually present the Wallaby jerseys. So these jerseys, when you present these jerseys to the current Wallaby team, you have to tell them a story about what it meant for you to play for the Wallabies. So I spoke to them about people who previously played for the Wallabies, understand the history, but also go and create your own history. And I think that's important now, where everyone in small business, whether it's Gladstone area or anywhere else around Australia, is going to be tough times for a while. But how can you understand the history that's gone before your business and sort of then go and create your own path and your own history going forward? It's going to be tough. Life is tough. Sport is tough. Professional sport, played in front of millions of people on television, and played in front of 110,000 people in test matches. And my last 4 or 5 years, I never got nervous before a test match, because I knew that I'd done my preparation. Culture was very strong. I'd trained as hard as I could. I knew where the gaps were. I knew how to identify the gaps, and away we went. So thanks everyone for listening. Happy to answer a couple of questions. It's been great that many of you could come on the Zoom call and hear a few more stories. I've got plenty other anecdotes and stories or values that I learned from playing the game. So thanks very much for listening in, but happy to answer a few questions moving forward.
Okay, so thank you, Tim. So if anyone has any questions, if you could please type it into the chat box, because we've obviously got quite a lot of people on the Zoom meeting. So please put them in there, and we will put the questions to Tim. But thanks very much for that, Tim. That was great to hear about everything that went on during your career. And a couple of things that I took away from that is the take opportunities. So I think a lot of businesses have taken opportunities that have arisen at the moment due to COVID, and the adapting of their businesses has been fantastic. But we need to keep looking for those opportunities as well. The other thing is being comfortable in uncomfortable positions. So I think the stress levels have been quite high over the past couple of months, but I think people in business actually, it's come down a level because they have got comfortable, more comfortable anyway, in those uncomfortable positions, and they're able to make decisions for their business accordingly. So that's definitely something that I've taken from that there. So if anyone's got any questions, if you guys have got any questions of Tim in the meantime. Okay, so we have got a little bit of time. If you have got questions to put into the chat box, we've got a couple of prizes that we can give away at the moment, and we have a special little tool that we can get up on screen to select the people that would get those prizes. So kindly donated by Central Apartment Group, Lightbox and Gladstone Entertainment and Convention Centre. So we will get that draw up onto the screen just now. So we'll just do a random selection. There'll be 2 prize winners getting those packages. So if we can take that away just now. So Wheeler Kaufman, congratulations. So you have won one night accommodation in Central Apartment Group, a $50 gift voucher for Lightbox, and a $50 gift voucher for Gladstone Entertainment and Convention Centre. So well done there. So we do have another one to give away. So Craig Conley, so congratulations on winning. We've had a little chuckle because he is involved in the accommodation business. So you have won one night's accommodation in Central Apartment Group, a $50 gift voucher for Lightbox, and a $50 gift voucher for Gladstone Entertainment and Convention Centre. So congratulations to Craig as well. So we'll just pop that off the screen, and do we have any questions that have come through? So just pop that chat box up there and we'll have a little look to see. Okay, so we have Bob at Achieve. So for Tim, what is the one thing that you can focus on, do or say or try when you feel times are difficult in these tough times?
Yeah, thanks, Bob, for your question. I think for us in a sporting landscape and also in business now is what's your core strength? So what do you do very well? And then, so what's your biggest strength? So really rely on that, but also in these times, how do you adapt a little bit? How do you look at ways to upskill yourself? Because we're all, I can see everyone on the screen, we're all very young, so we've got a long way to go in our working life. And how do you try and upskill yourself? I know that a lot of people in the industries now doing short courses and doing other ways of finding out ways that to upskill yourself, so that when things get back to reasonably normal, say it's Christmas time, how else can you adapt to go forward? So I'd say stick to what you're really strong at, but then try and find one or two other skill sets you can try and upskill yourself on that going forward.
Fantastic, thanks Tim, and thanks for the question, Bob. So the next question from Kale Dendel. So do you think that the Wallaby Way values are being applied in Rugby Australia at the moment?
Great question. Hopefully they are. I actually just came off a phone call this morning with the new chairman of Rugby Australia. So Hamish McClellan, who former Channel 10 executive, former News Limited executive as well. So very, very smart person. I think the values are coming back to rugby. I think, everywhere I go, and the great thing that we've got in rugby is it's a global game. So the other sports in Australia, apart from probably soccer, don't have that. It's a global game where women's rugby is huge at the moment. Women's sevens, I think it's the third fastest growing sport globally at the moment. So yeah, hopefully the values of what we learned and the Wallabies teams that have been in Rugby World Cups. 2015, we're in the final against the All Blacks. Hopefully those values can take us forward. It's going to be tough for a couple of years. We need to make sure we can hold our sponsors. Need to make sure we get a broadcast rights holder post this year, because that's about 50% of your revenue. So it's going to be tough times. And I might just carry on to Gary's question. What does rugby look like post-COVID? Will the game ever rebound? Well, I think it will. I think there's good support. And when I travel, even to Gladstone or to Roma and see all the country rugby sides, and I know it's dropped off a fair bit in the last 10 or 15 years, but rugby league or rugby union, it's the heart blood of where you are in the community. It's obviously the NRL starting tonight. That's great that they've become the bulldozer and we can all follow in behind them and try and get our not only professional game going in again, but the community game, which is very important, because it's a big relief from, I'm sure, everyone who's on the Zoom call, different businesses that you're in, the relief and relaxation you get from going to your junior rugby club or your junior soccer club or your senior team and going and watch them on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, or cooking the barbecue or working behind the canteen. That's all part of what community is about. So hopefully it's going to be different, Gary, but hopefully I think there won't be as many people working in Rugby Australia, NRL, AFL. I reckon the staffing will be reduced by probably 30 to probably up to 40% moving forward, because the model was probably a bit broken before COVID-19. It's just brought it forward a little bit.
Okay, so we do have one more question there, Tim. It's from Mick Elliott.
So from Mick, hi Tim. When you were playing, was there a big influence on mental health as there is today, and how did you deal with the dark times? Is there any information you can give here that may help small business who are struggling. Yeah, mental health. When I was playing towards the end of my career, it was starting to come in, the mental health piece, because um, most people will think, well, hang on, well, you're professional sports people, you're getting paid to do something you love. Um, you shouldn't get depressed about that. You shouldn't be upset about that. You should be embracing it. Well, when you're away from your family for 5.5 months of the year, traveling the world, that sounds great, but sometimes it's difficult, and people, whether you're losing matches or whether you're missing family, whether you're away from work, we had a lot. There's a lot more support now in professional sports. They have most players associations in rugby union, rugby league, and also AFL, and most professional sports have welfare officers that look after the players on and off the field, because it's not just about on the field, it's also off the field. And same as everyone on the call today, your staff, I think you've got to get to know your staff and your teammates more off the field than you do on the field. So that's on the field, we call it work. Off the field's day-to-day jobs and weekends, and how do you get to know those staff away from the workplace is really important. As I said before, what motivates them to come to work. So we do a lot with the Black Dog Institute, which is and Beyond Blue. So a lot of sporting teams support those organisations. And but I think for us, Are You OK Day is pretty big in sport at the moment. And for men, men don't really talk to each other as much as what they should. And that's coming out more and more in sport now, when you're seeing people like Darius Boyd, from the Broncos, talking about his issues and the challenges that we all face. I think it's probably not, you don't have to go and talk to an organisation. Go and talk to your mate, go and talk to your partner, go and talk to the next door neighbour, and just say, how you going? How you travelling? And the biggest thing in leadership, or when you run a business, I think, is how can you give time? How do you give time to people? More time than we're all busy. We can all, we're going to jump off this call in 10 minutes or so, and we're all going back to our day job and what we do. But to be able to take time in this hour today to listen in, to hopefully I'm giving you a little bit of advice moving forward out of the sporting environment, but how do you give time to people? That's, I think, the biggest key for leadership, moving forward post-COVID-19.
Fantastic. Okay, so I think that was the last question that we had. So thank you very much, Tim, for answering those. So we do have a few thank yous to go through here. So thank you to Santos GLNG for sponsoring the event and making it possible for Tim to speak today. Thanks, of course, to Tim for the presentation. That was fantastic, and I'm sure everyone got lots out of it. Thank you as well to Glenn Butcher, our local state government MP, and congratulations again on the new appointment. Thank you also to the sponsors for the prizes today. So Lightbox, Gladstone Entertainment and Convention Centre, and Central Apartment Group. So we'll get those prizes out to the people who have won quite shortly. So have you got something, Tim?
I was just going to say, maybe just before we go, hopefully through Santos, I'll be up there very soon to Gladstone. So hopefully I can catch up with all of you that have been on the Zoom call. Maybe have a function or a beer when we're allowed more than sort of 50 people together. So, and I want to hear your stories. You've heard a little bit about mine. I want to hear, what motivates you guys to go to work, what businesses you're working, because I find it really interesting when I come to different communities to hear how the community gets by and, what businesses there are. So whether it's a lemonade or a beer or a wine, look forward to seeing everyone soon.
Yeah, no, that would be fantastic. Yeah, we'll look forward to that. And I do know that our organisation, so when the restrictions do lift, I think in July we'll be able to have functions with up to 100 people. So we are looking at getting our networking events going again, so that we can get people in face-to-face contact, and maybe they can chat. And then if we could get you up, Tim, that would be fantastic to bring you along. So do you guys have anything else?
Thank you very much.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Okay, so we'll just get everything wrapped up now. So obviously in the current situation, it is tough for businesses. So make sure that you get in contact with either Gladstone Chamber of Commerce, Gladstone Engineering Alliance, or GAPDL. If you need any support, if you have any queries, if there's anything that you would like to lobby government for, that's some of the things that our organisations have been doing, and Glenn's probably sick of getting emails promise asking for more, but I'm sure he takes it all in his stride. So yeah, so we're at the end of it. So thanks again, everyone, for attending. Congratulations, obviously, for being in business, supporting our communities, keeping people employed. And I'm sure it's tough times at the moment, but we will come out of this stronger. And as the event says, adversity is an opportunity in disguise. I think from the things that Tim spoke about, there are opportunities there to change and adapt your business to the conditions. And in some cases, you might even come out with a better business model at the end of this. So thanks again for watching, and thanks, Tim, and we'll wrap up.